Well, hello there, and welcome on in to another episode of DCU Daily. We are here with the latest from the world of DC, and we've got a few different things to talk about today. We've got some follow-up information from all the Sergeant Rock news that dropped yesterday. So we got to talk about a little bit of, uh, who are they going to go with now that Daniel Craig is, out of the running for Sergeant Rock. Of course, we also, as promised, are going to be doing fan casting for Constantine. We were talking about Constantine 2 a couple of days ago with Keanu Reeves just saying, I'm aching to play this guy. And Francis Lawrence, the director of the original movie, looking to come back. And, even Akiva Goldsman, the writer of the original movie, but working on a script for a sequel. But hey, we're probably going to have a Constantine in the DCU proper. So we'll talk about, maybe who can play the DCU version of Constantine. Because even though Keanu Reeves might be coming back for the role, his version is going to be more that Elseworlds Constantine, the one continuing the story from the 2005 movie. So yeah, we'll get into the, who can play the DCU version of Constantine, and lots more beyond that. We've got a few questions from you guys to get into. John picked out a bunch of comments. We'll get into those. And speaking of John, how are you doing today? And what are you looking forward to talking about today?
Constantine, of fucking course. I know we already did this before, but it's kind of going off what we were doing a couple days ago. So I thought it made sense to like kind of refresh thoughts, maybe get some other different people, except for the main guy, because I'm sorry, that's just my favorite, and I'm gonna go into it again, but that's how it be. But before we get into that, we'll get into something else.
Yeah. So yesterday we were talking about the whole Sergeant Rock story, right? It dropped that, hey, Daniel Craig is no longer interested. He has pulled out of the project, but they are still working on it. It was initially reported by Nexus Point News, so we covered that. And then later on, we talked about how Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, all the big trades confirmed the news, and then they, had their sources confirming to them the same thing essentially. But we do have some follow up to get into regarding that because I read this report, and I believe this is from is this comic book report? I'm trying to remember. There's like so many of these websites. Let's see. This is comicbookmovie.com. So
Hmm.
they were reporting that not only did the Sergeant Rock movie lose Daniel Craig, but DC Studios is now reportedly eyeing Jeremy Allen White as a potential replacement. Some of you guys were in the chat yesterday talking about that, and we discussed, the number of names we could potentially take on the character. Of course, in this article, we can get into a little bit more detail about that. So now there was a supposed schedule for when they were looking to film the movie. So I'm going to read what they have in the article, and then we can talk about it for a bit, John. As for why he's decided to leave the project, they say in the article, Daniel Craig, well, that remains somewhat unclear. According to the Hollywood Reporter, some sources have told them there were conflicting scheduling conflicts with the film's expected fall shooting dates. So they were looking to shoot it later this year, pretty much around the same time that maybe Clayface will be in production, as well as potentially around the time where the Batman 2 will be getting ready to go into production. So, yeah, it looks like there were some scheduling conflicts with whatever else Daniel Craig might be involved in. Of course, he does
Hmm.
have the Knives Out franchise, and he's in demand, so I can understand that. While other sources have claimed Craig was disappointed with the box office performance and lack of awards recognition for Queer, resulting in him deciding to reevaluate his upcoming film choices. So maybe he's not excited to work with Luca again. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what that implies, if that is indeed what they're trying to say there. But as it says in the article, continuing there, Variety was reporting that Craig never actually committed to starring in the film and that there was never a formal deal in place, which is pretty much the impression I got based on the reports when we initially discussed it. And it looks like Variety is
Right.
confirming that. So basically, that means that he may have just been on DC's wish list, or an offer may have been made, and
Or
much
he
like
was Luca's top choice, like it
top
says, like
choice.
he's like it says right
Yeah,
there, he first choice to play the role, but it was never confirmed. Like he was just like,
yeah,
"Hey, I worked with this guy. I think he'd be really good here. That would be awesome." And he's
yeah,
like, "Nah, fam. I want to work with
yeah.
this loser who can't fucking get a Star Wars movie right."
Well, I mean, it would be very similar to the when Josh Brolin passed on playing, the Green Lanterns, Hal Jordan. So, again, another A-lister. But again, look, it's not easy to get an A-list star to like sign on to a big franchise, something where you're gonna be involved for a decade plus, right? And Daniel Craig is somebody who is very, very particular about the movies that he does. He's been like that even before James Bond. He's been like that since James Bond. But according to the Snyder, Jeff Snyder himself, of course, 2 times primetime Emmy winner, Jeremy Allen White of The Bear, The Iron Claw, and Shameless, has been offered now the lead role in Sergeant Rock. There is no word on whether he's leaning toward accepting the role or passing, but the studio is apparently confident that they'll be able to bring him on board. White is currently in the midst of filming The Bear season 4 and is expected to wrap the latest batch of episodes in early May. So his schedule should clear up for a late 2025 shooting schedule. John, what are your thoughts on this? James Gunn and Peter Safran are reportedly quite high on this movie, and it's been already worked on by Justin Koretzes, who wrote Challengers and Queer. So he's also been writing this, and it looks like the goal here is that they want to make it a straightforward war film with an aim to showcase to the fans a wide variety of content, just from the period drama that it would be like very Game of Thrones esque with Paradise Lost, and then you at the same time have something like Creature Commandos and Peacemaker and Lanterns, detective murder mystery, but then at the same time you have a war film potentially in Sergeant Rock. The diversity that James Gunn and Peter Safran have been pitching from the very get-go, this could potentially be a part of that slate. John, what are your thoughts on the story? What do you think about the idea of Jeremy Allen White joining? The fact that we haven't officially heard about this movie from James Gunn yet is a little puzzling, but where do you think this project goes next?
I don't know. I'm still kind of unsure on if this is actually a thing. Um, I don't know. Like, I mean, it was like Deadline, Variety, Hollywood Reporter. They're good about that stuff, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm still like kind of iffy on if this is a thing or not. I mean, Teen Titans, I'm still kind of iffy on because I mean, yeah, like James Gunn is so like entrenched in internet culture at this point, and usually he's good confirmation, and he hasn't confirmed this. Maybe he's waiting for the right time. I don't know, but I'm still kind of iffy on if this stuff is actually happening or not. And Sergeant Rock is one of those things.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a developing story. If we get any more details on this, we're going to get into it. Again, like we talked about yesterday, Jeremy Allen White would be a good pick. It looks like if you go off of what Jeff Snyder is saying, it's not just that they're interested at DC in Jeremy Allen White, but they're going to pursue him. And they're very confident of bringing him on board. And certainly with a shooting schedule, I'm not saying like the Bear is the only thing he's got on his schedule. I'm sure he has other things lined up, but for a project like this, it might be, something that appeals to him a lot more than it does to maybe somebody like Daniel Craig, who's had all the success in the world, is at a point in his career now where he wants to really only do the projects that feel like, they build up maybe his awards cabinet or something like his trophy case. Whereas Jeremy Allen White's maybe still looking for a big breakout role. We talked about it yesterday, though, John. What would you think about potentially having Jeremy Allen White leading a war film, just a straight up war film, which is what James Gunn and Peter Safran want this to be? It seems like, featuring Sergeant Rock. Do you think we'll get Easy Company in this as well? Like,
yeah, I
what
would hope
potential
so. I
characters
mean,
we will
it's
see in here?
I mean, that's an important part of Sergeant Rock's like history. So I would like to see that. And I don't know, I said before, like I just don't see Jeremy Allen White in the role. He's just too tiny. Like even as like when he was
He
buff
can
in
bulk
Iron
up though,
Claw,
right?
I mean he could bulk up, but it's just like I don't think he could be like bro is like what, like 5'7"? Like he's just too small, I think. And I don't think he's like big enough to really do like the intimidation like of the above average soldier that Sergeant Rock is. So I don't know. I don't say that. Would he do a good job acting wise? Yeah, I just don't buy. Maybe they want it to be so grounded that do want him as like sort of an average soldier, but then it also then there's the idea like it goes too far into one side of, oh, it's too grounded. Then it's like, okay, I could watch a much better war movie that is the same sort of thing. I would want it. Yes, I'd like it to be a war movie, but at the same time, I want it to be at least a little bit unique and maybe a little bit over exaggerated so that it doesn't fall into those cracks, but it still feels like at least kind of comic booky a little bit. So that's just kind of the vibe I'm looking for.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, Luca Guadagnino has a bit of a record, as you see here in the IndieWire article, of announcing movies that never saw the light of day. He once talked about doing a "Call Me by Your Name" sequel, and then a narrative adaptation of Bob Dylan's "Blood on the Tracks" album, as well as this American Psycho remake. So there's a few things like this that Luca has had happened to him. This wouldn't be the first high profile instance of a project that has had developmental snags. But given that James Gunn and Peter Safran, they've sort of pushed through pretty much everything they've taken on as part of DC Studios so far, I imagine if their plan is indeed to bring in Jeremy Allen White as the new lead in the movie, then I'm sure they can pull through. Of course, the character was first introduced in 1959 in DC Comics in Our Army at War. The character of Sergeant Rock anchored his own comic book series from 1977 to 1988. So he hasn't been as relevant in recent times, but obviously, we have seen some loose connections in the new Creature Commandos show, which is getting a second season next year. And there were reporting around the idea that this movie might tie closely to the Creature Commandos show. So it might not be super well, grounded, even if it's going to be a war film, which is where maybe Daniel Craig potentially left the project over creative differences. Maybe it was indeed because he was never officially signed on. Different outlets have different takes on this, so I'm guessing they're all hearing things from their various different sources. But until somebody like a James Gunn announces this officially, until Luca officially says that this is happening, I mean, we can just go off of the reporting. And the reporting so far says Daniel Craig is no longer in the movie, as we talked about yesterday, and Jeremy Allen White seems to be the front runner to replace him. Let us know what you guys think about that. We talked about a bunch of other names yesterday, but it looks like until they've exhausted their efforts on Jeremy, they won't move on to anybody else. So hopefully, if they do end up bringing him on board, then they can continue on with filming this movie later this year. If I were to ask you though, John, before we move on from this topic, if they do film in the fall of this year, when do they put this movie out there? Like, are they going to have 3 movies in 2026, or do they end up waiting till like spring of 2027? Remember, where they have an untitled movie slotted for March 2027.
That makes more
Or
sense.
do you think maybe they push Clayface forward and then or back to March 2027 and move Sergeant Rock forward?
I think this stuff is usually set in stone. I think they would wait for Sergeant Rock, get all the stuff prepped and all that shit. So that's what I think. I personally think that. I don't. I think they're going to wait to 2027 because 2027 we don't have anything official in terms of the DCU. We only have Batman Part 2. So I think they would want to save that for then because we're already getting 2 movies and a show, possibly 2 shows, maybe even 3 shows if Peacemaker season 3 is going to come out in 2026. So there's that too.
Well, I don't know if they're going to be able to turn it around that fast. Do you think? I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing like back-to-back years with new seasons, but do you think it's possible that they would already have greenlit? We don't know that they're working on a 3rd season yet, do we? For Peacemaker, because I know they're still in post-production for season 2.
Well, I mean, I could see it getting a season 3. I don't think they would stop at 2 seasons because I mean, it was one of the most watched shows. A lot of people love it. People love John Cena. They like that supporting cast. I feel like it can bring in another side to the DCU that maybe other people would not be interested in as much. So I think I could see it. But they might wait. Like, we'll wait once this comes out, kind of how they waited, like in the middle of Creature Commandos when people were like, yeah, this is great. Then they officially greenlight a season 2. But I think it would be in like their back pocket where they would be like, okay, here, we're considering season 3. It's kind of sort of already greenlit, but maybe not yet. And then once people are liking season 2, they'll be like, okay, we'll do a season 3. And that's that. So
Yeah, I mean, also, in the Variety article, they pointed out that the DC Studios rep declined to comment, and of course, we have talked about how James Gunn has not addressed this officially. Do you think there's a reason why they haven't addressed it? Is it because the script isn't done? They don't want to, take on any of this, development and detail. Like they don't want to add any official credibility to it. It's enough that this being reported unofficially. Whereas I know James Gunn has been very specific about what he considers to be officially greenlit, which is a finished script at the very least. So maybe the script isn't done. But are you surprised that this is one of those things that is being done behind the scenes and yet it's somehow so public in a world where it seems like James Gunn is trying to keep a lid on everything else, but he just can't keep a lid on this thing? And DC Studios is still not officially commenting on it. Like it's just weird to me that this is
it's an anomaly, a little bit of an anomaly.
Because it feels like we were in a new era where that wouldn't be so common. But nonetheless, I mean, look, Daniel Craig is in demand. He's of course in the new Knives Out movie. What's that one called? Wake Up Dead Man, coming out this year on Netflix. And he, that's where he's I think got an executive producer credit alongside Rian Johnson. So he's a big part of that franchise. He's also going to be starring in a movie with Charlize Theron, directed by Justin Lin, on Apple Studios. I don't know if it's going to be a theatrical release or just streaming release for Apple TV Plus, but it's being produced by Apple Studios. It's going to be called Two for the Money. So, yeah, those are the two big projects that are on Daniel Craig's, docket. Yeah, that's one way to put it, his docket. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if Sergeant Rock finds a new lead. Maybe it is Jeremy Allen White. But in the meantime, we have to move on to Constantine. John, Constantine. We were talking about it. We've been talking about it for a few days. A couple of days ago, we talked about Keanu Reeves potentially coming back for a Constantine 2, the sequel to his, was it 2005 movie, right? It's been almost 20 years. He says he's been aching to play this guy. Francis Lawrence is excited. Akiva Goldsman's already working on a sequel script, but that would be an Elseworld version of
Yes.
Constantine. Whereas what we are looking to do is potentially cast a Constantine for the DCU, the new cinematic universe that James Gunn is leading with Peter Safran. So in the thumbnail for this episode, we have mentioned Dan Stevens as potentially the DCU Constantine, John. But before we get into who could be a good pick, I just wanted to get an idea from you of who you potentially want to see, at least the version of the Constantine character that you want to see in the live action DCU. Is it a very particular iteration that you would like to see? Are there particular, versions of the character that you are very fond of, like, particular traits that you feel are essential that we cannot skip past before we even get into who would be a good fit for the role?
Yeah, I think just need to get a guy who can play a fucking great dickhead. Like John Constantine, John Constantine is not a good guy. He's not a he's on the side. He's an anti-hero, yes, but he's like pretty much like one step away of being a villain, and that's what makes him really interesting. And he's just a good asshole, and you need to get someone who can like get someone who can play an asshole, but someone who you can root for. And I think you need to get someone who's like really charming and likable, but like also you don't know why you find him charming and likable. He's just, total fucking asshole. And thing is, I know this is probably going to be controversial. I don't want him part of Justice League Dark because I feel like that goes against Alan Moore's original creation. I want him to be his own character. And the thing is, Swamp Thing is coming out and he debuted in Swamp Thing and he's friends with that character. I think it would be really awesome to like have him like maybe make a cameo, or if you don't want to cast anybody, at least mention him if they're not doing an origin story, like he's been around a while. I think that would be really great because, building the world a bit. Um but you need to just get someone who's plays like just such a fucking piece of shit, and just someone, get like a blonde haired or someone who's willing to dye their hair blonde, kind of skinny dude, punk rock kind of vibes, who doesn't work with people at all. That's why I don't want him to be part of Justice League Dark. If they do in fact do a Justice League Dark, I don't want Constantine to be part of that group because I personally I just don't like it. Like have like there's other characters to put on that group that you can work with, like Zatanna, Deadman, Black Orchid, Swamp Thing. Like you could do all those characters. You don't have to bring in Constantine for that. So I think yeah, just get and make sure he's actually British. Whether you get like a British actor, Welsh actor, Irish actor, Scottish actor. I think any of those guys specifically try to get an English actor, but I've have a different array of guys who can do a British accent, and even if they're Scottish and whatnot. Um, but preferably get someone from the British Isles. That would be very helpful. Don't pull the Keanu Reeves thing where he's American. Even though, you know what, we've got enough like fucking British actors who played American characters. Fucking Henry Cavill, like Batman, like Christian Bale, like come on.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying, like, even the playing field, but I understand that gotta be specific. You can't have both ways. So yeah, get a British guy, have him look like his comic book counterpart. and someone who can just play a great dickhead, who can be, but at the same time at least a little bit likable, so you can like see his plight and you want to like try to like be invested in that. So yeah, get someone like that, and I think you'd be good to go.
Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty good summary of both the character and the version that we want to see in the DCU. But now that let's dive into some of the choices that you have for the role. We have, I believe, 5 names as we usually do. So who's the first one that you'd like to pitch for Constantine in the DCU?
Well, the man that's on the banner, the man that's on the thumbnail, he's my favorite for the role. He's I think the best actor for the role, and that's Dan Stevens. Like this dude was born to play this role. Like straight up, when Joseph Kahn was doing the movie, like when he was making like concept art for it, he had like Chiwetel Ejiofor as Jason Blood. He had, I think, Natalie Dormer as Zatanna, and his Constantine was Dan Stevens. Although he looked more like the 10th Doctor a little bit, than you can look up the concept art actually. But he just has the look. British, also very helpful. He's got the look. I think the age is really good. He's in his mid 40s. I would want him to be older, not too old, but I think he's the perfect age. He's blonde, dirty blonde hair, like has done like really gritty characters, has done kind of fun, douchey characters like Godzilla X Kong. um, he's also done, and he's also had some comic book prowess with Legion, which was Marvel, yes, but yes, this is what I was talking about. Yeah, again, a little bit more 10th Doctor with the longer trench coat and wearing sand shoes, as they would say. But very, very 10th Doctor look. But this was back when Joseph Kahn was going to be directing the movie, and honestly, I think like, yeah, perfect, great, amazing, let's do it. But just
I
like,
would also say he's gonna be in the sequel to that the next Godzilla times Kong movie. We
yeah,
recently talked about he's signed up, so he's got a busy schedule.
he
But
does.
nonetheless,
But
yeah,
I just think like the man was born to play the role, like easily. I just think he would be just
he's
too
a great
like,
actor. He's
he's
already been a
great. He's
superhero.
so
He
fucking
was
great.
Franklin Richards, right? Like
No, no, no.
Reed
He was
Richard
Legion. I already mentioned that.
in Legion. Yeah, I mean, come on now. That's one of the best sci-fi
Listen to
shows, one
me
of the best
next
superhero
time.
shows of all time. I'm sorry, I was trying to look up the artwork, so I got distracted.
That's fine.
But
I'm
yes,
just
I
pulling your
think
leg.
we're
You pull
off
my
to a
leg,
good
I pull
start.
yours. That's the whole
There
thing.
you go.
Anyway, but
That's
I
a
think
great
he's just
pick.
perfect. I know
He
some
would
people
be.
don't agree with me, but I just think he would be perfect. I'm curious what I'm pretty sure Lenny said when last time we did this, she was like, "Fuck no, I would not want to see this guy in the role." Which I'm curious what she would think. Again, I forget who she mentioned last time, but
Well, let us know in
I
the
think he
comments,
would be great.
Lenny. Yeah.
Um, Personally, I think he would be perfect. I just think like all the roles he's done, the look, the age, I think it lines up just amazingly. He would be an excellent John Constantine.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree with you. He's one of the most talented actors in the game. He's a very underrated actor, somebody who doesn't get enough credit for a lot of the roles that he does. But he's also someone who's clearly, not afraid of just having fun with something like a Godzilla times Kong movie. Clearly, he's had enough fun with it that he's going back in for a second try. But at the same time, he does a lot of work that we don't necessarily, get to see because he's part of some big IPs, but he also does a lot of good indie projects and he's been busy. He's always busy. You look at some of the stuff that he's been a part of. His resume is one of the most impressive resumes, and yet a lot of projects that he does, like Cuckoo in 2024, for example, like these are things that you might have never heard of before, but nonetheless, he's a part of them. I mean, when I saw him on screen for the first time, in that Godzilla times Kong movie, I was like, you know what? This movie might be absolute trash, but Dan Stevens is having the best time of his life, and I'm here
Hey,
for
it's not trash. I think it's great.
it.
I think it's genuinely great. I think
The Welcome to Chippendales was also pretty good. No, dude, I just think that movie franchise jumped the shark after what was it? It was the one with like the one that had the three-headed. What's the three-headed monster? It was Godzilla King of the Monsters. That's the movie where that franchise jumped the shark. But since then, I'm just like, I know what I'm getting into, and I'm okay with that. And yeah, Dan Stevens will be back in the next one, but hopefully he'll be able to play the Constantine because or anything. I mean, you know what? Give me anything. Dan Stevens is so talented. Just bring him in the DCU and have him play anything. He's so good that I would take him as any character. I'm sure they can find a good story for him and a character that he can really invest himself in. But he's only one of 5 names that we have here, John. So who's next on your list of potential castings for
Yes.
Constantine?
I have the next one I have. I don't remember any of my other like suggestions. So if I did talk about all these other guys, there's one I know for a fact I didn't, but I think I might have talked about this next one, and that's James McAvoy. I just think he's I know he's Professor X, but I think but again that adds to the prowess. He would be okay with it, and he is
Mm-hmm.
in his 40s. He's looking a lot grayer now. But I mean, you could always dye his hair, but
Yeah.
I want it to be like older than like all the young people. Like kind of I know they have an older Hal Jordan, but I would like to 40s I think would be perfect for I just like the the thing is like every role, like even Speak No Evil, which I was not very much a fan of towards the end, I think he's still a great actor, and even though that wasn't like a horrible, like terrible performance, it was his weakest, not very good. But even then, he did some attributes that were okay, that were not that bad. But even then, ignoring that, like everything else, he's always brought his A game. He's okay doing superhero stuff, and he's like a chameleon. Like every role is different for him. Like Professor X is different from Kevin Wendell Crumb, which is different from Speak No Evil, which is different from Atonement. And like he's not afraid to like push the boundaries of his career. He can do action, he can do comedy, he can do horror, he can do a little bit of everything, and he's okay with doing that. And he's just one of the most underrated actors working today. And I think John Constantine would be a walk in the park for him. He would, I think, treat it seriously like he does with
Mm-hmm.
all of his roles. But I think like he's just his entire filmography, his entire resume is just so illustrious with everything, every attribute of every performance he's done can be catered into making a good Constantine. So I think he just would be excellent. And I think he's at the perfect age. He's okay with doing comic book stuff. So I think that's a recipe for what would definitely be a brilliant Constantine from James McAvoy, easily.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with James McAvoy. Scottish, well, born and one of the best representatives from a country full of amazing talent. And I think he would be a great addition to the DCU. He's already played Professor X. He's familiar with what it takes to be in a superhero movie franchise. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him as Constantine. The only thing I can think of is maybe he might look at it and be like, "Is this really giving me a new challenge in a way that I'm interested in taking on something that I haven't done before?" Or is this something that's just going to hinder my ability to do other movies that I'm interested in and do not just awards caliber films but taking on new challenging roles, because he's somebody who's not trying to do the same thing twice, right? Like he likes to take on roles that are very diversified, like you mentioned in the beginning. So to me, that would be the big question in his mind if you were to offer him the role of Constantine. Like, is this going to be worth my time? Is it going to give me something new that I haven't done before? And if, as long as it, you check all those boxes, I think that would make it a good choice, because you certainly can't go wrong with the talent that is James McAvoy, John. But let's keep the ball rolling. We have 3 more
I
names to get
mean,
into.
just one more thing with James
Yeah.
McAvoy. I forget what movie this is from, but like him, when it's a British movie, obviously, but there's a scene where like a kid flips him off, and then he's just like smoking a cigarette, and he just goes. I think he like takes his balloon and he like throws it in the air, and he's just and that's Constantine in a nutshell. Like that's like if you won't believe anything else, that's the character. So yeah, just wanted to bet this just great stuff. Great stuff. So let's move on to our next guy who's definitely
Sorry, I muted
Older,
myself
but
there, but let's keep going. Who's your next
yeah.
pick?
My next pick is definitely if they want to go like really old, like if there's a certain generational gap between like the really old heroes like Hal Jordan, and if they want to go in that direction, that's who I have. So I remember I was talking with a buddy of mine. This was a while ago, almost a decade ago, I think. Um, so where he was talking about who he would want. He's British and he's a big Constantine fan. So he's like, the two guys I wanted was one of them. I'll mention him in a sec, but he's not like an official thing. Was Tim Roth. Tim Roth was his was one of his picks, and I think he would be great. However, he is 63 years old. So I don't it's he would be the most unlikely person out of this entire list because I think it would be a little bit behind him at this point. He'd probably be really good like 10 years ago when my
He's
buddy
in
was
the
talking about
MCU
it.
still, right? Like he's gonna be coming back as Abomination again, probably for Secret
Yeah,
Wars.
maybe. I mean, if he's
So
still like doing that, then
isn't
cool. And if he
She-Hulk?
wants to stick
Yeah.
with that, then fine. But I still think like I think what was that movie? What was that show he did? It was like not Body of Lies. It was like, what was, it was like,
She-Hulk?
no, fuck no, not that shit. No, it was like about lying or something. Like it was like
I'm
he
not
invented like
sure.
a lie detector kind of thing, and it might have been Body of Lies. I don't remember, but
Somebody let us know in the chat.
Lie to Me.
Or if
Lie to Me. That was
there
the
you go.
show. It lasted for a couple seasons. It was apparently really good, but it was on Fox, and they don't know how to keep a show, so they canceled it after a couple seasons. So,
Yeah.
that's what it was.
Well,
Um,
he's been around for decades
but
now,
yeah,
and
he's
he's got
been
a
around for so
decorated
long.
career
He's
ahead
had,
of.
again, similar to James McAvoy, he has had an illustrious career, but taking over the course of much longer, as we mentioned. Um, I just think like I mean, he like Reservoir Dogs is one that pops into my head. I think that could kind of fit in. Although he played more of a good guy there, ironically, than the bad guys that
Right.
were on the team because he was an undercover cop. Um, but I think I just think like he's done like so much. Again, he's mostly played like I don't want to say similar roles back to back, but like he definitely has like a lot. He has a wider net, but I think he plays like villainous anti-heroes very well. And I think he could be charming enough to make the role work. And I think what is this fucking movie? What is this?
Four
Four
Rooms.
Rooms. Never heard of it. Looks fucking bonkers though.
It does.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, he's done a whole bunch of different genres over the course of his career. And I trust my friend who well, he's not really my friend, but like we were doing a lot of DC stuff at the time. Like we were talking about a lot of DC stuff, and he mentioned this, and I'm like, you know what? I trust him enough, and he's like, I think Tim Roth could be good, and I think he's a great actor who could fit into that. Well, he just might be a little bit too old now. But outside of that, I think he could nail it. Like if they want to go for much older, then I think he could do it.
Yeah. No, and you know what? It will again depend on how big of a presence this Constantine would have. If you want to have a whole series of movies featuring Constantine, or if he's always just going to be like a side character who shows up in other movies or TV shows. Maybe the version of Constantine we get ends up being more or less just somebody who is a television character, or he shows up as a supporting actor character more so than in a lead role.
Yeah.
But Tim Roth, I mean, he's got all the talent in the world. I wouldn't mind seeing him. It just would depend on which version of the character, if they want to go with an older version or somebody who needs to lead multiple movies. Not saying he cannot lead a whole series of films. He's got the talent and he's got the pedigree to do that. But like you said, he's on the older side when it comes to all the picks that we have here. So who do you have next? We have got a couple of more left. Let's see. Let's
Yeah.
see who else we have on the docket.
Next one, a guy who's been pretty. I don't want to say he's like blowing up recently, but he's been in some really great projects as of late. But the next one I have is Rupert Friend. Not Willem Dafoe, but Rupert the Friend. Um, but I've seen him in a couple things. He was most recently in Companion.
Jurassic
Uh
World Rebirth.
he's gonna
He's
be in
gonna be in
Jurassic
that
World
movie.
Rebirth.
You can see.
So he's no stranger, and he was, He was in Pride and Prejudice, which was with Keira Knightley, who was in Atonement
Mhm.
with James McAvoy. Boom, there we go. Degrees of
Yep.
Keira Knightley. But
He's also was in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show,
yeah, I mean,
so
so he's no stranger to like big budget
yeah.
franchises and that kind of thing. So, but he's been around for, for a couple decades, and I think he's not so if you're looking for if you're looking for someone who isn't a huge name, like a big name, like because like James McAvoy, Dan Stevens, those are bigger names. Tim Roth is a bigger, not like obviously I'm not saying get like like The Rock, like obviously I'm not talking about that guy, but they're bigger names. Rupert Friend isn't as big of a name as McAvoy's probably the biggest name out of the ones I've mentioned. But I think Rupert Friend, from what little I've seen of him, I think he could be um charming individual, but also have like that kind of darker side. Like I remember in Companion, like he's just like you're like something's off about this dude, but like that's kind of what you like from him. And I believe he's in his 40s. Hang on. And so that's kind of the primate. She's 43, again, British. So it all works, and he's um done a lot of great work in the past, and I think I'm not as familiar with his work as some of the other guys on this list, but I think Rupert Friend could be good. And I remember my a different like Facebook friend was talking about like who he would want as a James Bond. He's like, "Oh, I would love to see Rupert Friend," and I think that kind of goes hand in hand a little bit. John Constantine is definitely a grittier character than Bond, who's like more classy, but I think like they kind of go hand in hand of like dickhead anti-heroes who get the job done, but who aren't likable, but somehow are, you know, like that kind of thing. So
He almost looks a little bit like Orlando Bloom in these pictures. Like a
I think it's just because like he's on a ship or something and he's got like the long hair like Legolas. Whoa, hello. But I think let's not get demonetized. Um, but anyway, so yeah, I think he would be a really good choice, and I've seen some of his work recently, and I think he's a really good actor who could definitely nail it.
yeah.
So yeah.
Underrated, somebody who probably this would be one of the biggest roles of his career. Certainly one of the most high profile things he's done. So yeah, no, I would love to potentially see him. And like you said, he's British, so he doesn't have to fake the accent. So, but yeah, that's a pretty impressive list already, John. Where do we go next? What's the big finale to this
The big
list of fan
finale is
casters?
bringing back a name, because I know people are going to get upset if I don't mention him, even though I don't want to see him in the role again. But that's Matt Ryan. I decided, you know what? Give the man a chance again. Give him a big budget movie chance. Now, I've since disliked his
Charlie Cox is
portrayal.
coming back as Daredevil, and
You
he was
know,
just a TV Daredevil. Now he's in the MCU,
but the
so
thing
why
is, it is
not?
the same continuity. This is a different continuity because he was in, well, initially it was his own universe. Then they
Right.
retroactively made it the Arrowverse. And then, there was that. But this is DCU. So here's the thing. He would have to try really hard to win me back again, because the Arrowverse just fucking destroyed any credibility he had.
I will say
Like,
his own TV show, that iteration was a lot better than what he ended up being in the
yes,
Legends of
Hellblade,
Tomorrow.
the
Yeah.
Constantine show was really good. But I think he would have to try hard to really win me back, because I don't like what they did with his character. I thought he was too likable, and then they tried to like, oh, he had a lover, and like he tried to be normal, and it like very Arrowverse type shit, and I didn't like that. And so I think he could bring it back to that more. First of all, get the fucking pronunciation right. I understand the Keanu Reeves movie saying Constantine because that's the American version,
Yeah.
and he's playing by an American guy, and they Americanized him. But why they called him Constantine instead of Constantine makes no sense to me. And it was funny because I remember when they were doing the Crisis crossover, Tom Ellis, who I think could also make another good Constantine, came in and was like, "Isn't it pronounced Constantine?" He's like, "No, it's Constantine." I'm like, "No, you're the one who's fucking wrong. Tom Ellis is right. You fucking asshole." Anyway, but I just think Matt Ryan bringing him back, I could see it. Like, I don't know if he could do like a big budget like Dan Stevens, James McAvoy, and to a lesser
Yeah.
extent, Tim Roth and Rupert Friend could nail a leading role in a movie. I don't know if Matt Ryan can because he hasn't really been in a ton of movies. He's more of a television actor. So if they want to like
I'm
make
sure he can
give
rise
him
to the
another
occasion
show,
if asked. Yeah.
yeah, if you want like a show guy or like have him show up in Swamp Thing and that kind of thing, as like a supporting character, and then he like gets his own show again, but it's this continuity, then I could see Matt Ryan doing it. It's just like I just don't like what they did with him in the Arrowverse. I just don't like how they did that character. So he would have to really try to win me back again. But I know a lot of people love him, and I know a lot of people would fucking hate me if I didn't bring him up. So I'm like, all right, fine. I'll bring up Matt Ryan. I don't personally care for his portrayal anymore because of what the Arrowverse did to him. But oh, hey, look, it's Lobo. Um, so yeah, I think he could do it, but if they're going for a much small, if they're not giving him a big budget movie, I think he could do it. But it's just, man, fuck the Arrowverse, man. I fucking hate
Well,
what
you
they
gotta
did
remember
with
though,
him.
what net was it on NBC? What network
Yeah, it
was
was NBC. The
Constantine on?
initial one was
Cons-
NBC. Yeah,
Yeah, like so for Constantine, I think Matt Ryan can rise to the occasion. If he was asked to come on and do this on a bigger platform, he did it on a broadcast television network show version of Constantine. So I'm sure that can translate well into doing something for the big screen for a movie. And he's got the talent. He's been in the role before. That as an actor, he's very familiar with the materials. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. I mean, James Gunn has already brought in a lot of actors who people have been asking for, and think that would be great fan castings. But they also happen to be great castings for the role, like Jason Momoa playing Lobo. So, yeah, I mean, Matt Ryan. I think certainly as far as the visuals go, that was never the problem. And the accent wasn't an issue. I think a lot of people actually like the NBC version of the show. That's the
yeah,
reason why they brought him into the Arrowverse to begin with. But yeah, I look the Arrowverse version of the character. Maybe we don't need to worry about that, but I wouldn't mind seeing Matt Ryan as Constantine reincarnated in the DCU. He was a very memorable part of that era of superhero television. So certainly somebody who did the character in a way that it didn't lean into like something that felt like a Doctor Strange in the DC world, but something that felt more like different. More, it was almost like watching Supernatural in a way, right? That's kind of like what it reminded me of. So I wouldn't mind seeing it. Matt Ryan, I think, would be a great pick. Those are all great picks, actually. Dan Stevens, I think, is probably still my favorite. If you're going with like a big picture, A-list, cast member who you want to have as like one of the top tier heroes who could potentially eventually end up in a Justice League Dark, but like you said, you don't want to necessarily see that. But
yeah.
even if that's not the direction they go in, I think Dan Stevens is still a great pick. And Matt Ryan, you can't go wrong with that. He's already done this before. Tim Roth, James McAvoy, great actor. Rupert Friend, underrated. All 5 picks I think would be fantastic.
Hmm.
Guys, let us know down below in the comments what you think about all of those picks. Which of those are your favorites? And then if you have any other names in mind that we haven't talked about, let us know down below. I'm sure we will bring those into the future show and talk about them like we usually do in the Q&A session, which is what we're going to be doing now. John, you picked out a few comments and questions from the
Yeah,
fans,
boy.
and we want to answer those before we finish off today's show. So let's start things off with the first one. This is coming to us from JB1138 saying John is spot on about the He-Man remake. What WTF is it on Earth? Why the heck is it on Earth again? It's a missed opportunity for an epic fantasy movie. John, what are your thoughts
Yes.
on this? I mean, I think you agree because I mean
I
he
agree.
agrees with
It
you.
just I
Um,
feel like so I read the synopsis that's on Wikipedia, but I don't know if that's true or not. Where apparently he crash landed on Earth and was separated from the sword, like the power sword, his like famous sword, like the power of Grayskull. I'm He-Man. That sword. It was shown in those behind the scenes pictures, and then he eventually gets reunited with the sword and has to protect his home of you know uh of Eternia and all that shit. But it's like, did he live on Earth for all those years and then he gets like and then he becomes like he's lived on Earth and then he then gets reunited with the sword and then has to go to turn like just why? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like we were just talking about this and like Travis Knight, Chris Butler, it's like, bro, what in the Twilight styling in this? Um So are these set photos or mockumentary photos? Is it set in the modern day London doesn't have fire hydrants like that? Is that supposed to be by the state? Yeah. Yeah, like I'm getting it. Like the sword looks great. Like it looks really good. And however you fucking pronounce it.
Galatzine, Nicholas Galatzine.
Nicholas Gazette is looks good. Like he's got like the pink shirt and like he's got the hair. He looks huge.
He does
But
look
it's
huge.
like
Yeah, he's been in the gym.
but it's just like why couldn't we have gotten just a regular fantasy movie? Like, I don't get it.
Well,
Like,
but I mean, there's a lot of regular fantasy movies that feel very generic. Maybe the story that they're telling here could be a little more nuanced. And again, this doesn't have to be the whole film, right? Maybe it's just the
the
part of
fact
the
that it's
movie
on
takes place
Earth
on Earth.
anyway is like just goes to show you don't know the source material. It's like, from what I'm gathering, the writer saw the Masters of the Universe movie from the 80s and we're like, oh, okay, so they go to Earth. Okay, that's a part of it. So we're going to do that again. And it's like, no, how about you go back to the show or any of the shows? Well, not the Kevin Smith show because that one sucked, but go back to the show, go back to the fucking comics, go back to the fucking action figure, play with action figures, and then you'll fucking figure it out. But it's like, and it's just weird how this is coming from really good people who know what they're doing. So it's like, why? Why? Yeah, yeah. We were this close to greatness, this close, and you fucked it up already. Like there are so many people that are just turning on this movie automatically. Like, oh, it's taking place on Earth. I'm out. We're done. It's like when they revealed that the Minecraft movie was going to be live action. We're like, nope, we're done. We're out. Even I and before you give me the fucking it's for kids excuse, I know Minecraft kids that are fucking like this looks like dog shit. I'm not gonna go fucking see this. Well, they don't say dog shit, but they're like they see like Minecraft and they're like, oh, like there was this. Oh my god, that reminded me of this thing. Like my friend went to go see some movie with his like little sister, and it was like a kids movie, so the Minecraft preview was playing. And I don't know if his little sister said it or if somebody else in the theater said it, but when the famous, I am Steve moment happens, there was just like a moment of silence, and then somebody yelled, "You're not Steve!" It's just like, yeah, that's what it is. It's just like, I don't know, these decisions of like, wow, look at this illustrious source material we could take stuff from. Nah, fuck that. We're going to do our own thing that all the fans are going to hate, and then we won't make any money, and then we just blame it on the fans because that's what it is now. Oh, it's your fault that we don't know what the fuck we're doing, and we're dumbass executives who don't know how to make creative decisions.
Yep. Well, I mean, look, to me, I'm still gonna wait until the movie comes out. And I'm not as big of a fan of this franchise. So, I mean, that's probably why it doesn't affect me emotionally as much. But I understand your frustration, and for a lot of people out there who are frustrated with maybe just getting another He-Man movie that feels like it's gonna go more in the direction of what the first movie did, rather than really more straight adapting like the TV show and the original source material. So we'll see. I'm sure we'll get more photos from the movie, the set the set photos, the location filming. They're only just starting to produce this movie, so hopefully there'll be a lot more to come in the months, and then we'll get the movie soon enough. But we do have a few more comments, John. Magical Sky Wizard saying Anthony Starr would make an amazing Clayface. He has complete and total control over his face muscles. He could do some really amazing physical acting. John, what are your thoughts about this? Do you think Anthony Starr would be a great Clayface?
Well, considering the fact that Anthony Starr already hates Batman, it's perfect.
Yes,
So
he does have that going for him. Oh my
so
god, that
that
was a
works.
dumb comment. The way
That
he
was
said,
fucking dumb shit. It
yeah.
just shows he really is Homelander. I mean, the reason I brought this up is because it's an intrigue because I've seen nothing like literally the only Reverse Flash fan casting I've seen. Oh, Anthony Starr. Could he be good? Yeah, but it would just he's just playing would be playing the same fucking character over and over again. It's like, all right. But Clayface, I think, would be something different. He would be playing, a tragic villain, and I would really like that. And I think it would be, showcasing his acting abilities more rather than because I mean he did have a career before playing Homelander. He's not just Homelander. So I'm sure he could do like some more like intriguing like aspects with the character and really showcase his talent as an actor and kind of get out even though it would be another superhero thing, he would get out of the like the boys idea of a superhero and do the traditional idea. I don't know if he wants to do that because he definitely gives off the vibe of a guy who doesn't like superhero stuff and the reason he did
Clearly.
do oh look at him and his titty milk. And the only reason that he did this is because this is a show that's coming from people that seem to actively hate superheroes.
Hmm.
So I mean, I think that's why he did it, and so, yeah, I mean, I'm and plus I think he said he would never do Marvel, so would I like to see that? Yeah, I think it's different than just, "Oh, Reverse Flash." So, and in addition to that, I think, yeah, we get at and, the boy as, somebody else said, The Boys is gonna finish soon, so he's not gonna be doing that anymore. Fucking translucent. Um I will say that was kind of funny. Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, I don't know if he would actually do it, especially so soon after Homelander, even though it's a very different character, part of a very different universe. But I wouldn't mind seeing it. But I would say get someone who either hasn't done anything like this before, hasn't done any. I wouldn't say hasn't done any superhero stuff at all. I'm just saying hasn't done something like Clayface, and I don't think he wants to do something so soon after Homelander. So it would be unlikely that he would choose this. Um, so could it be good? Yes. I don't think he would do it, and I would say leave it for someone who really wants to, like, portray this properly rather than a guy who's like, "I hate Batman because I don't understand the character at all." So, yeah, there's that too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that wasn't the only comment that we got from the conversation about Clayface. We actually Demi Moore, is of course starring in The Substance, and that's been getting a lot of Oscar buzz. She's already won a few awards. I believe she won the Golden Globe for Best Actress, and she's picked up a few wins on the awards circuit leading up to the Oscars. She's
Mhm.
definitely in the lead. I believe she won the BAFTA as well. We talked about it
Yeah.
on the show a couple of days ago. But yeah, Kyle was mentioning in his comment that Demi Moore movie was exactly Clayface. LOL, check it out, it's new. And yes, you
Yeah.
were talking about The Substance, where literally the plot of the movie feels very much like a Clayface plot because she's like a washed up actress. Demi Moore's playing a washed up actress who, basically uses a substance that all of a sudden turns her into a much younger actress, played in the movie by Margaret Qualley. So it's not like they just made her look younger. They actually had somebody else who like looked completely different, which very much lines up with the story of what you would expect from, of course,
Yeah.
the Clayface movie. Do you think
Like
they can go in that direction potentially? Like that instead of just maybe we have a female Clayface? I wouldn't mind seeing that.
well, I mean, there is a female Clayface that could work, but it feels like they're doing Basil Carlo, and I feel like, and the thing is, if I feel like if they do a female Clayface, people are going to be like, "Oh, you're just doing a
Hmm.
DC branded substance," and I don't want them. I don't want this to be seen as diet substance, even though
Right.
Clayface. Every version of Clayface literally came before this fucking movie. So technically the substance would be a ripoff of Clayface. But
Hmm.
the thing is, it's so the only thing is like oh, he takes a substance and that's it. That's because they did reveal like allegedly the rumor is that oh he's a B movie actor takes a substance to make himself look uh uh to make himself look attractive and it
Yes.
but it has side effects, which is essentially one of the many things of Clayface. I mean, the Basil Carlo version has had so many different um has had like so many different iterations of theirs because Carlo was originally just a Phantom of the Opera clone. So they're like, so we got to give him like keep giving him new um like origin stories so that
Mm-hmm.
he can be the traditional clay monster Clayface. I like what Rebirth did with him, and it seems like they're going with that, where he's like a villain, but like kind of leaning into anti-hero stuff, so it works.
By the way, I just love how we were just showing photos from Ghost this whole time. We're
Yeah.
talking Clayface, and she's just working with
Well, she is
clay and
working clay,
ceramics.
so it works.
I'm just saying, it fits. It's so perfect. It's right there.
It's right
The
there.
visuals are perfect. But anyway, you were saying.
But the thing is, it is very different. It's just like the basis of like they
It's like
both
she's been
take
preparing for this role her entire career. Anyway.
they both like literally it's surface level. It's like they both take a
Yeah.
substance and they're both
Yeah.
lead movie actors. Oh hey, look, G.I.
Yeah.
Jane.
Hey,
But
keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth. I'm just that's
so yeah, I mean, I love how you're like, oh, check it out. It's like, yeah, everybody knows about the substance, bro. It's been nominated for like
Mhm.
multiple awards. It's like everybody knows what this movie is.
Yep.
But yeah, it's not like I'm not gonna act like the substance is exactly Clayface. But it's just like the thing they revealed, like the alleged rumored leak of the summary,
Mhm.
it used the word substance. So everyone's like, it's a fucking ripoff of the substance. Well, it's like,
But dude,
well,
we know this.
Clayface fucking came before, loser. So
Yeah, and it's been like in development for a long time, and the
yeah,
character's been around for a
and the thing is,
longer time. So
they even mentioned this. Mike Flanagan wrote it before the substance, so
he did.
eat a dick. I'm just kidding.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, look, Demi Moore, one of the best actresses in the game still. She's probably gonna pick up an Oscar this year for The Substance, and regardless of whether she's in the DCU or not, I mean, The Substance seems to be a movie that is, getting all its praises, and Clayface is coming out soon. So yeah, it seems like all the pieces are there. Why don't we get James Gunn? Why don't we get Demi Moore to come over and join the DCU? Maybe she could play a great Clayface.
Lady Clay is the
Lady
name.
Clay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was perfect timing. Just all those photos. From
Sandra
Ghost.
Fuller is the name of the
Yeah.
character. I think she's the third or fourth Clayface. No, she's the fourth. She's the fourth because
Yeah.
Matt Hagen is the second, Preston Payne is the third, and then they call his nickname is Cassius Clay.
Cassius
And
Clay.
so because
Yeah.
he's the fifth or sixth Clayface because he's the son of Preston Payne and Sandra Fuller, and they create like a new Clayface. So yeah,
Okay.
a lot of
Clayface. They procreated a Clayface. Anyway, so JB1138 with another comment saying
yes,
Sklenar,
beginning
Brendan
and ending.
Sklenar.
Yeah.
So yeah, then we were gonna end the Q&A here with the JB comment again, saying Brendan Sklenar would probably be a very good Batman. I still haven't watched anything he's in, but I've seen a few clips and I was sold on him as Batman. John, what are your thoughts about Brendan Sklenar potentially taking on the role? I mean, obviously we actually talked about this not too long ago, so
Yeah.
I think he would be a great fit. He says that he's built for it, so he would love to do it. I mean, he's just waiting for a call. It seems like both from Kevin Feige and James Gunn, because I think he was in line potentially to play Nova, and he said that he would love to do either. It seems like Batman is his dream role.
The only thing I've seen him in is the trailer for Drop, and that doesn't really show me like Batman material because one, it's just a trailer. But like, I mean, and it's hard to tell because he's like has a beard, so
And a
like
mustache and everything.
like
Yeah.
shave that shit off, and then we'll see.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he could do it.
Can you imagine Batman shows up and under the cowl there's a mustache? That kind of gives away a few things.
And then when he's Bruce Wayne, they CGI it over. He doesn't shave; they just CGI it over. Yeah, I'm sure he could do a good job. Like from what I saw in the Drop, he's very like kind of charming kind of guy. So, and he also played like a cowboy, so that's kind of gritty.
Hey, maybe he could play a young Indiana Jones.
I was literally just gonna fucking say until you fucking interrupted me. I was like, oh, that looks like Indiana Jones a little bit.
It does.
Yeah, I
This
think
is
this is
from 1920,
1923.
1923.
I've
Yeah,
heard
yeah,
that the show is great.
yeah. Which the timeline adds up. That's pretty much like when Indy was running around, or a young Indy was running around. So
Yeah, Young Indiana
yeah,
Jones Adventures.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that would be I think I'm sure like again I kind of trust the audience. All you guys said, "Oh, and Pierre is Jon Stewart," and look where we are now. So I'm like, you know what? Cool. Sure, he's got the bod for it. A little bit of a chunkiness, but like he can
Dude,
lift some
come on.
weights.
Like the dude looks like he's in great shape. I just think
No,
it's
it's
just
just
the
like that.
mustache for
Like,
me.
here's the thing. I imagine
Yeah,
like Batman is like fucking has like a 12 pack. That's like
yeah.
so that's what I'm thinking of, like, because they love to objectify the dudes. They're like, oh, he's got to have the most perfect peak condition body kind of thing. So yeah, I
I mean,
think
of course, a lot of people would ask the question, but is he tall enough? He is 6'2". So while he's not like quite David Cornsweat's height. I think he's certainly like taller than like Christian Bale, for example. He's kind of in the same range as Ben Affleck. So like, yeah, physically,
mhm.
I think I'm sure he would add more muscle to his frame. And yeah, once she does that, I mean, even now, I think he's got enough going for him that he could potentially, like, right there, that could be Bruce Wayne walking the red carpet. I would buy that. Like, obviously, there's also in the Justice League movie, especially the Zack Snyder cut, you could see that Ben Affleck, when he's going out scouting the Justice League, he kind of grows a beard and a mustache when he shaves it off when they actually start going on missions. So I think having a beard and mustache shouldn't preclude him from consideration. If anything, that could be a part of the role. Part of the guys that he makes a lot of public appearances looking a certain way, and then when he's going out being Batman, he maybe just doesn't have the 5 o'clock shadow anymore. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. The dude's like he's built for it. Like, it's hard to tell like how big this guy is until you see him next to other people, right? Like that's the thing.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not saying that like Helen Mirren is the most physically imposing person, but it goes to show you that he's got the physicality, he's got the look. I think he could be a great Batman. He's also got the pedigree and the acting ability, and since it's a green dream role for him, I'm sure he wouldn't mind committing to playing the role for a long time to come, because I'm sure whoever they cast for the DCU Batman, they're gonna want him to stick around for a while. The other big thing that I would love to see is obviously a actor who can pull off, have fathering a teenage brat that is Damian Wayne, and I think Brendan
Mhm.
Sklenar can do that. That's one aspect of the character that I think when we talk about fan castings, a lot of actors sort of fall short on. Like, I think Glenn Powell's a bit too young for that and stuff like that. But what Brendan Sklenar, it feels like he's got it. He's I can see it. Like, it's believable. You know, and like you look at some of these shots of the work he's already done. He can be a gritty Batman. He can be a buff Batman. He can be a rock and roll Batman. He can be, a Batman where Bruce Wayne has to be a father, but at the same time, he can, kick ass and take names. So I wouldn't mind seeing him. And JB, obviously, I think he's sold on him. I mean, John, do you think this is your front runner now, based on the recent
I don't know about
quotes from
that,
him?
but I'm sure he could do a good job.
All right. Well, he's certainly thrown his name in the hat alongside Alan Ritchson and so many others, Jake Gyllenhaal and Glenn Powell. Batman is one of the roles in the world of the comic book, so I'm sure we'll
He's
eventually
one of
get
the
somebody.
roles of all time.
One of, yes, of all time. Like, there's James Bond, there is Batman, and this is Batman. So I'm sure somebody wants to play him, and Brendan Sklenar is one of the higher profile actors that could play him. So we'd love to see that. And yeah, hit that like button, guys, if you haven't already. Thanks for stopping. Yes, thank you, Fiona. Thank you. Um, do we get a closer look at the bulge? I'm sure we will whenever the bat suit gets a premiere. And moderator Fiona, you'll probably get to see what that looks like. But in the meantime, it's been an awesome show. I mean, as always, believe in the bulge. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Hit that like button if you haven't already. We love to be here with y'all 5 days a week, talking about the latest from the world of Hollywood, the DC news. We didn't really do a ton of Hollywood news today, but we will get back into that tomorrow. MCU Weekly as well, of course. There's a lot going on in the world of the MCU. There's a lot going on in the world of movies and TV shows in general, and of course the world of DC.
Hell
It's
yeah.
been a light with a lot of news and updates. I'm sure we'll have something else to talk about regarding Sergeant Rock. Maybe there'll be something that James Gunn says. We have really been missing a lot of James Gunn updates of late. It seems like, has he been really quiet, or he's
Has
just
he
taking a
actually been
vacation?
sleeping?
I don't know. It seems like it. As much as we like James Gunn, getting his rest, we also like the news cycle to be filled with enough things to talk about so we can continue to do the show. So I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about tomorrow. Until then, as always, hit the subscribe button if you're new. We're here 5 days a week with DCU Daily. We do movie reviews of those who are curious. And of course, tomorrow we'll have MCU Weekly. So we have a lot of good movie news and topics and debates in the chat and in the comments. And of course, we bring your comments in the show as always. So hit that notification bell so that you know when we go live with a new show or we have a new video going up. We'll see you tomorrow on another episode of DCU Daily. Until then, hit the like button on the way out. And John, it's been a pleasure as always. We'll see you tomorrow on another episode of DCU Daily.